Good morning. I'm Audrey Bilger. I'm the president of Reed College, and I hope you're all enjoying our beautiful campus on this perfectly lovely day. It's a delight to see you all here this morning. Welcome, class of 2028, our transfer students, family, friends, faculty, staff, continuing students. We are all here today to mark the beginning of the school year and to commemorate the inclusion of our newest Reedies into this vibrant community. Convocation is one of my favorite rituals of the school year. We gather to mark a fresh start. So much work and love and concern have gone into bringing us together today. On our side, tents and events, staff planning for months, preparing for your arrival. Faculty putting together syllabi, you'll be seeing those students in the coming weeks. Just lots of energy that goes into making a semester start. For our students and new community members, you've been packing and maybe repacking and now unpacking. You traveled, maybe you traveled some more as you found your way here. And prior to this, there was all of the work and determination that you put in that led us to select you to be here. We are an intentional community. We chose you, and you chose us. Now here we are. As someone who spent most of my career as a professor, specializing in novels and gender studies and humor, I can say that what has guided my choice to work at liberal arts colleges and ultimately to take on this role at Reed is the students, faculty, and staff who are likewise drawn to be in communities like this. We tend to be committed to learning, not as a destination in one field or area, but as a lifelong pursuit. Class of 2028, the coming days will be thrilling as you experience your first days of Reed. Take it all in, and if you feel overwhelmed, know that you're not alone. Don't lose confidence and don't lose heart. Easier said than done, I know. Remember, though, you didn't come here to remain the same as you are on day one. You are here to be changed by the people you meet and the knowledge you will discover. Allow yourself to be challenged and stay curious. When I first started doing public speaking in front of increasingly larger groups, a friend gave me some tried and true advice. Many of you may have heard this. Don't think of how I feel nervous about taking the stage. Think about how I'm actually feeling excited. It turns out that those feelings are energetically similar. So try, when you can, to convert your nervousness into excitement. Try also to preserve your curiosity and your openness to understanding where people are coming from. We all know that we live in polarized times where many define relationships in terms of us versus them. As you meet new people and make new friends, I encourage you to avoid making assumptions and instead ask questions. Curiosity is at the heart of lifelong learning and to living with passion and purpose. I am curious about you and look forward to getting to know you better and to cheering you on in this stage of your journey. Welcome to Reed. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Audrey, and thanks to everyone who made this event possible. My name is Deborah Kamali, and I'm the new chair of the Board of Trustees of Reed College. I believe this is my first time on this stage since my graduation in 1985. On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome you to Reed College and to the Reed community and to tell you how happy we are to have you here. Welcome to the parents and loved ones. We're privileged that you're sharing your students with us and pleased that you made the trip. To our international students, some of you traveled so far without family. Welcome to you as well. Please give our regards to your families. I hope to meet them at graduation. To the class of 2028, you decided what schools to look at, where to apply, and you chose Reed, a place that values truth and integrity, that welcomes curiosity, where you have the chance to learn from and collaborate with amazing faculty. And as Audrey said, Reed chose you back. Reed has people and resources ready to help you along the way. Everyone at the college is invested in your success. What you might not have realized is that you also picked one of the most beautiful places in the country, the Pacific Northwest, close to the Columbia River Gorge, Mount Hood, and the coast. Portland has one of the best food scenes in the US. So families, you'll have a lot to explore when you're here to visit. And students, Reed has many opportunities for you to get off campus and engage with Portland and beyond. There are organized trips, volunteer opportunities, internships, and a lot within walking distance that you can explore with other students. It's an honor to be part of this Reed tradition, marking the start of the academic year. There are other traditions out there. If you're like me, you're starting to see pictures from friends and relatives' kids on their first day of school, in their school clothes, with their new backpack, and in recent years they have a sign. My nephew says Henry, 4th grade, his teacher's name, and he likes ping pong, soccer, and Fortnite. This is a bit more formal, and it's experienced as a community, but it's similar in that we're stopping to acknowledge a beginning. And like all beginnings, there are feelings of anticipation, nervousness, excitement about what's to come. Please enjoy your day, take lots of pictures, maybe with a sign, say hello to someone you don't know, and take note of this feeling of newness because you can't capture it again later. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Miljan Trulov. I serve as the Vice President and Dean of Admission and Financial Aid, and I am thrilled to be here today. This year, I've made a decision not to bore you with the usual statistics, the most common first name, where you're all from, in part because I can barely contain my pride at seeing you all here. I look at you, our newest Reed family members, and I can't help but to feel connected. We've all had long conversations all year long about your students, their personalities, whether or not Reed would be a place where they would thrive. And like you, I'm also sending my son off on his first day of school. That happens today, and I get it, letting go is one of the hardest things to do for most of us. I decided to spend the day with you because kindergarten is more of a pull-up and drop-off. This is much more involved. There's a tent, and you get it. But honestly, my search for finding a kindergarten for him, I've shared this with many of you, I learned a whole lot. And the thing that I learned the most about was belonging. A human need to feel accepted and as a part of a group. I believe you are all here that you decided to attend Reed because you thought you would be a part of a group, because you felt as though you would be other people who would ensure that you felt as though you belonged. And not just part of the Reed family, but also the communities that are within Reed. Because my son is going through the exact same thing, I asked him for advice. I said, what advice would you give all of you today? And the first thing he said was, ask questions, tell them to ask if they don't know something. And that's going to be a repeated theme you will hear time and time again. Ask questions in class. Your curiosity is a gift. You heard some version of this from Dr. Kay, Kathy, and Phyllis last night. Ask questions if you feel lost, if you want to know how to navigate this place. Ask questions. We are all here to help you succeed. The second thing he said was work hard. because then you can make more money. There may be some limits to the advice of a 5-year-old, so I'll acknowledge that. But the most important thing he said was be kind. That's a theme, is be kind. And I think in an age where civility is frowned upon, being kind is more difficult and the most important feature of belonging. Even as a member of a community, within a community, kindness is the most important feature of belonging. This is true even if your name is Olivia, of which there are 4. And then there's Emma, Emilio, and Emily, of which there are 5. And Jacob, all 5 of you are here. Our most common names, and this is a 4-way tie, because there are 6 students that have these names. Isabel and Isabella, raise your hand. All right, let's give them all a hand. All right. Liliana, Lillian, and Lily, raise your hand. Yeah. I want a student club of these groups. Sophie and Sophia. And Quinn. All 320 of you also hail from 39 states and 16 countries from around the world. And in reverse order of states, debuting in our number 10 and 9 spot, 5 students from the cheesy state of Wisconsin, 6 students from Virginia, tied for number 7 students from Illinois and Massachusetts. We have 8 students from Colorado, 10 from New York, 25 from Texas. Thanks for making the long trip. Knocked out of its number 2 spot, we have 36 students from Washington, because the second most populous state is Oregon. All 51 of you are here. You got up, you didn't have to get on a plane. We're glad you're here. 79 of you lived a life hoping you can journey north. Away from the self-driving e-cars, closer to nature. Welcome you Californians. So those are just some of the numbers. I'm going to share some of your stories. One of you is a third author of Astrometric Measurements and Investigation for 4 double-star systems in the Journal of Double-Star Observations. The first author on the reclassification of WISE J113527.7-552928. One of you has demonstrated incredible success and responsibility in light of a family member's incarceration. You stepped up and you still got straight A's. One of you built a rover named Doom and was awarded 4th place in an annual robotics contest. One of you views city planning as a potential role to connect communities and to aid students to feel less lonely. One of you was accompanied here by an older sister after losing both of your parents to cancer, and we are so thankful you are here. One of you escaped the horrors of Afghanistan. One of you joins us from Ukraine. One of you created a novel air vent system that reduces airflow by air conditionings, and there's so many of you that have created your own language. I'm sure there's a club for that. We have so many leaders and authors and athletes, people who are inspired and founders of organization. You are more than just your grades. You are community members. And this is sincere. One of the things we look for in admission is kindness. And I think all of you are kind. I'm going to read something a very wise person wrote, one of your classmates, excerpts from their essay, and I've changed a bit to maintain their confidentiality. But just a couple of paragraphs, it'll take 30 seconds. All my life, I considered myself an atheist. Then I got hired to operate the sound system at a church, and it changed my entire perspective. They didn't judge me for my identity. For the first time, I was in a community that I didn't think I fit into, but everyone welcomed me without question. They simply treated me like they treated everyone else in this space. I went to church every Sunday so I could do my job, and in the process, I got a glimpse into their beliefs, into their practices, and as time went on, I felt that place becoming more and more of a home. I still wasn't fully convinced God was real, but for the first time, it didn't matter. What mattered was that the people there loved each other unconditionally because of their belief in God. Even if God wasn't real, the love those people had for each other and in strangers was real. Otherness and community. What started for one of your classmates in apprehension resulted in community. You all start Read today wondering what will come of you, of your future, of your heart. And like my son suggested, kindness, despite differences, despite disparate beliefs, can still result in community. I promise you, you will meet people that have different beliefs and different passions than you. I promise you that someone will care about something far more than you do, and they will not be able to adopt or match your passion. And you can still be kind. And you can still connect. And you can still find community. Being kind in light of difference is much harder to do, right? And it's worth every effort because at Read, we work hard and we do hard things. Welcome to Read, Readies.
Hi, my name is Andy. I am an art history major and comparative race and ethnic studies minor and rising junior from Las Vegas and SoCal, and I am your current student body president. I remember being in your seats, literally, approximately 2 years ago in mid-August of 2022. I spent the days moving into college with the most ambivalence I'd ever felt before. Half of me was bright, excited, ready to take on this new chapter of my life, which promised intellectual exploration, adulthood, and personal and professional development. Yet, on the other hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of anxiousness. I was scared and didn't quite know what the future would hold. Before I give my advice, I'll start with an acknowledgement, something I wish I had been told before I came to Read. The different identities we come into this space with will impact our experiences at Read. For example, it's a lot harder to enjoy college if you're low income and have to work a disproportionate amount of hours compared to your peers at an institution where the majority of students are high income. It's hard being in a predominantly white institution as a person of color or navigating inaccessibility as a disabled person on campus. And finding community and joy in college is not impossible, but it is all that much harder when you come from these identities. It's an inequity that, for some students, the universal anxieties of starting college also come with heightened financial, social, and personal challenges. That's all to say that although college is a very hard transition for everyone, your identity can add some pretty deep layers to it. Upon first glance, I met and encountered very few students who came from identities that I shared. However, the more I opened myself up, the more of me I saw. I don't just mean finding people who shared my identities, but those who supported me, people I connected with and made being at Read worthwhile. People from different countries and states, interests and backgrounds, identities and experiences. I saw this quickly through the groups I joined and opportunities I sought out, like joining the Black Student Union, the peer mentorship program, my job at the Visual Resources Center, and my fellow members of student government, just to name a few. The opportunities to connect are truly endless if you keep looking for them. So, I have a few pieces of advice. 1, know and embrace yourself, your identities, and all of the things that make you you. I had to learn quickly that instead of shrinking my identities I saw as marginalized at Read to find belonging, I needed to embrace them in order to craft my own individual sense of belonging. I connected with people by being brave and authentic. I remember the overwhelming pride I felt When I found out I'd been elected as student body president, as someone who was open about being first generation, poor, and Black. I fantasized about college by watching films like Pitch Perfect, Mona Lisa's Smile, and Legally Blonde. Without representation, I didn't ever really feel like college was for people like me, which is why acknowledging my success felt so profound, and I knew other people in my community could relate. Another note on self-assurance is checking your imposter syndrome, something that is abundant at Reed. I can remember listening to my classmates during conference and feeling it myself immensely. I'd listen to people talk about their accomplishments as if they took away from my own, which is not true. This is where knowing yourself comes in handy. It's intentional that we're all here. We were each selected because the people that know Reed the best thought we'd grow here the best. Our individuality is sacred and profoundly important. My second piece of advice is to get to know and embrace the people around you. In my time here, I've come to know that along with curiosity, empathy, compassion, generosity, and individuality also make a Reedy a Reedy. Be as curious about yourself as you are to others. Think about where your peers may come from, what identities they bring, and how acknowledging our differences can cultivate a truly beautiful, supportive, informed, and communal space. This can come with challenges, getting outside of your comfort zone, but the thing about imposter syndrome is that it really only thrives when we cultivate an environment for it to do so. So, acknowledge and celebrate your own strengths and talents as well as your peers. Thirdly and lastly, know your why for Reed. What do you value? What do you hope to gain? In 4 years, how do you want to be able to tell your Reed story? My why for Reed was awesome financial aid, a campus alongside a canyon, and a close-knit community. Now, when I look back at my time at Reed, my story will be about lots of other people. I'll talk about all of the things I've learned from my friends, peers, mentors, and mentees that I admire and have had the privilege of knowing. So, in conclusion, embrace not only your identities and strengths, but those around you, too. And as Solange says, do everything with intention. Consider your values and inspirations and all of the things that you do here. I'm pleased to welcome you to Reed, my dream school, and I know that you'll all flourish if you open yourself up to growing.
Welcome. It's wonderful to see you all. Welcome to students, to families, to faculty, to staff. I'm Kathy Olson. I'm the Dean of the Faculty and the Patricia and Clifford Lunenburg Professor of Psychology here at Reed. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, Pete Rock, Professor of English. Pete has taught in the English department for 23 years, joining Reed's faculty in 2001. He received his BA in English from Yale and his Associate of Arts degree from Deep Springs College. He has also held a Wallace Stegner Fellowship at Stanford University. When I asked him to tell me a little bit about himself, he noted that he raised rabbits behind the garage in Salt Lake City where he grew up. And he believed that the rabbits would probably talk if only they would trust him. After college, he worked as a ranch hand in Montana and then a security guard in an art museum in New York. He's also worked as an usher, assistant cook, an internationally certified windsurfing instructor, a temp, and a riding teacher. He shared that his dad read the Chronicles of Narnia and the Wizard of Earthsea to him and his brother, and that's how stories got their hooks in him. When he was an exchange student in Australia, he had a teacher who told him he could be a writer. And finally, he suggested to me that he used to believe being a writer was an identity or destiny, then realized that was part of his problem. Now he's trying to become a person who likes to write. I, for one, am glad that a teacher told him that he could be a writer and that he seems to be a person who likes to write, because he's become a wonderful writer, a wonderful teacher of Reed students who are learning to write. He's taught fiction at the University of Pennsylvania, at Yale, at Deep Springs College, and the MFA program at San Francisco State University. His most recent work is Passers Through. He's published many novels, including The Night Swimmers, Spells, Click-a-Tat, the shelter cycle, my abandonment, the bewildered, the ambidextrous, carnival wolves, and this is the place, as well as a story collection, The Unsettling. He's also published a number of other stories. He's received a Guggenheim Fellowship, a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, an Alex Award, and has been a finalist for the PEN/Faulkner Award. Leave No Trace, a film that was adapted from his novel, came out in 2018. I just want to note, in addition to being doing his stellar creative work, he's also a beloved faculty member. Students rave about the ways that he creates a respectful, creative space in the classroom where they learn to improve their writing, and it's a space of respect and inclusion. At Reed, we talk to students and we ask them to provide feedback on their instructors at the end of every semester. And we ask them to provide really concrete examples of things that people did. I'm not going to go into those concrete examples, but we always say, avoid general statement like, Pete rocks, which students have been known to say on that sheet because, well, Pete rocks. So in addition to having this impact on our students, he also has really impacted the broader Reed community. I just wanted to note he's been a longtime member on our Committee for Advancement and Tenure, which is a committee that takes a lot of work, and you're helping evaluate other faculty. And I appreciate the care and thought that he puts to that work, supporting the college and supporting his peers. But I would ask you to join me today in welcoming Professor Pete Rock, who will be speaking on The Blank Page.
So, yes, hello. You're probably all wondering why I brought you here this morning. I have to say I share your concern. We find ourselves amid the beginning of a talk that may turn out to be nothing but a collection of beginnings that will revolve around the anxiety beginnings cause and investigate the way beginnings cause us to be cast into situations where we feel bewildered and insufficient. I often find myself in such situations, for instance, right now. One strategy I have is to turn to the words of others to give me courage. Beginning again, I offer you a couple epigraphs. First, from Tanya Tagaq, the inner throat singer, composer, and author. We all put on suits of meat as training, as a challenge. We all know this is temporary. And secondly, from the late American author Donald Barthelme. It's appropriate to pause and say that the writer is the one who, embarking on a task, does not know what to do. Don't worry too much. I don't mean to suggest that I totally don't know what to do embarking on the task of giving this little talk that I'm giving right now. But I do want to be clear that a short time ago, the prospect of beginning this talk filled me with mute panic and confoundment. My intention today is to talk for 15 minutes or so in 7 discrete chapters about my world, which is storytelling. Both my happy struggles trying to write stories and also the challenges and pleasures of trying to teach students to take whatever it is inside them and using words, bring it out to make an experience for other people, readers. Along the way, I try to suggest to them that bewilderment and confoundment are good places to start and necessary if they ever hope to write anything original. Confoundment and bewilderment are probably harbored in no place more than in beginnings. Writers often talk about the blank page with fear and trepidation. Writers sit before the blank page, paralyzed, unable to begin. What if we feel we have nothing to say? What if we make a mark on that blank page and it's a mistake, the wrong mark? Are we doomed? Will we travel down mistaken paths forever? Here you all are at some kind of beginning, setting out And when I say you all, I mean everyone here is beginning something. But specifically, I'm talking to you first-year students. You're setting out into college. You've recently been admitted to a highly selective institution of higher education. You're actually matriculating. And so you don't need me to point out the parallels, the resonances, the metaphors, and the allegories between what I have to say about storytelling and your current situation. I can leave that all pretty much implicit. Furthermore, I'll not disrespect you by using phrases like writing your own story, and I'll try to avoid making any gestures toward your journey. Chapter 2. To begin, what is helpful to have? An intention, a guess, a hope, a kind of spell. Intentions are necessary. They give us momentum and belief. They get us moving into where we need to go. But where do intentions come from? One place when writing a story is all the other stories we've read in our life. The ones we've loved, the ones we've resisted, we carry them around in us and they generate a kind of expectation. You all will probably be surprised to hear that I'm not an expert about artificial intelligence. However, my understanding is this is sort of how AI works. You have a computer probably about the size of this tent, and you take a lot of books and you feed it in, and the computer compares the stories, and integrates them, and assimilates them, and several weeks later, it spits out a kind of approximation of a story, what most stories are like, or what stories most people seem to like. It's a little different when you're a human. It's a little bit more unpredictable, and the focus is slightly different. And our goal is to write something specific, not like other things. Not only do we synthesize when we read all the things, when we write all the things we have read, but we are also thinking about things we're not reading, thinking about stories we'd like to read, stories that we're not seeing, and that's why we write. We also write from who we are specifically, our lived experience, our families, our struggles, our challenges, our triumphs, our dreams, and our hopes, our relationships. Maybe, although it's always neck and neck between show, don't tell, and write what you know, the greatest cliche of writing teachers is write what you know. And write what you know is meant to be a reassurance, which is to say, your experience and who you are is enough. And if you stay close to that in writing your story, you will convince your reader because you have authority in that world. And yet, I've always found that when we write what we know, we immediately start to suspect that there are things we don't know. And some of those things are pretty interesting. What we like to know, what we wish we knew. I'm often telling students that if there's something outside of them that is fascinating them, but they don't know anything about it, it's because there's something inside of them that is calling to that thing. And their job is to write the connection in some way and to surprise themselves where they end up. Curiosity, intuition, unexpected attraction. These are the ways we move forward, how we surprise ourselves. Chapter 3. And yet, if you follow your curiosity and intuition, they will inevitably lead you away from your intention. That is okay. As noted, intentions are necessary, but they can be dangerous as well. They can tend to keep us from following ourselves into a stranger and truer place. Albert Einstein once stated, "No worthy problem is ever solved in the plane of its original conception." And as André Gide wrote, "One does not discover new lands without consenting to lose sight of the shore for a very long time." Losing sight of the shore. As an open water swimmer, this concerns me. When writing a story, I often pause to breathe. I look up from my desk and I cannot see the shoreline, neither where I set out from nor where I hope to go. I find that what I'm doing is not what I thought I was doing or what I planned to do. This makes me feel out of control. I've come to recognize that often where my own work goes really bad is where I feel this way and quickly try to solve it, to control the situation. Moments when I am unable to enjoy the fact that I've launched myself into a new place and and where I never have been, and I can't easily appreciate being startled and surprised. I try to fight my way back to my initial conception, my intention. I try to return to something I've done before or I've seen others do, or I simply run away from that story. When a person is feeling lost, we can't grab them by the shoulders and shake them and say, "Find your way, have more confidence." This tends to have the opposite effect. How do we become more confident? How do we find our way? Flannery O'Connor, when asked, said, "The best way to learn to write stories is to write them." My most common advice to students worrying about whether a story they have in mind will work is try it and see what happens. One way we do become more confident is by making mistakes and living through them. As we do, we begin to normalize and welcome uncertainty, and beginnings feel less fraught. Have I gotten better over time as a storyteller? I know I've become more comfortable in chaos, trusting that since I found myself back from where I didn't plan to be so many times, I can once again find a new way. If we knew what was going to happen, what would be the pleasure in writing the story? Chapter 4. Students often come into my office holding their crania like this and saying, "I have so many big ideas, I just cannot get them out." And I say, "Are you sure?" And I say, "Are they ideas or are they feelings? And what do you think it would take to express them?" I recognize their dilemma. My own stories, when they're inside me, always make perfect sense. But when I try to share them, readers are often confounded. One reason for this is the slippery, corroded, and shared medium that we use. As T.S. Eliot writes, "I gotta use words when I talk to you." Using words, it's a quandary, and why we are here to be patient as we find out how to arrange them to reflect our own peculiarities in a way other people can follow. Overcoming this problem of words and communication, we can't do it alone. We need to learn to enjoy the discomfort of trying to communicate with others who don't understand us and don't know what we know. Man, Miles Davis once said, "Sometimes it takes a long time to sound like yourself." Chapter 5. We call a writing class a workshop because we want to suggest that whatever writing we discuss is under construction. Such a workshop is also predicated on the belief that others might help us realize what we are trying to say. I won't go into all the details of how a workshop is organized, but typically a student gives a story to the class and to me, and a week or so later we gather and we talk about how we experienced it, what we found most original, most confusing, just what we thought happened and why. The process is often, at least initially, quite disconcerting for the writer of the story. I know that was always the case for me. My readers often seem determined to misunderstand my stories, to not feel the mysteries I felt. They failed to register my genius. It took a long time for me to trust my readers' goodwill, to see their confusion might not be entirely their own fault, to listen. And by listening, I began to learn how to use my words in a way that was not only specific to me, but that others could follow. A simple thing I want to say, a promise I want to make. Other people can help you make sense, and you will help other people. Chapter 6. Stories to me are not about intentions, which hopefully evaporate or are a kind of rocket that fall away. They aren't about ideas or concepts or messages. They are an invitation for a person, a reader, to have an experience, to have relationships with the characters in the stories, and to experience the relationship between those characters. So stories are about people and about energy, situations between people. Sometimes I say that characters really don't exist on their own as individuals, or are impossible to understand without other characters. Interactions and relationships are the only way that characters can become believable to us, can become people. Similarly, I'm not sure if I believe in or can understand people in isolation. We come to be ourselves, to express ourselves, and become distinct in our relationships. We become people that way. I've been fortunate in my time at Reed to witness some of my students write books, find readers, and even find fame. This delights me. But what makes me far happier is when I hear from students about their friendships. Sometimes I've begun in my classes discussing each other's work when they say, "We're all still in touch 20 years later. We're helping each other figure out our lives." Perhaps this is the most important thing I have to say to you here at the end. College is about a lot more than abstract or even applied knowledge learned in classes. It's about people, it's about relationships, it's about friends. If you look around yourself at all the people who are in a similar situation as you are in right now, people you may have met or will meet soon in the next few years, they could be incredibly important to you. Sitting nearby, strangers you'll feel so tenderly about 10 years from now. Yes, they look amazing. They appear to be very confident. But they're nervous too, I promise. I know I am. Chapter 7. If this talk of mine has a structure, it's a circular, circling one. Again and again, we think we know what we're doing, we start doing it, and it turns out to be something else that we didn't actually know what we were doing. And yet we find ourselves in a new place with new insights and understanding. We begin again. This is progress. This is not easy. This is a complicated pleasure, and it never ends. In storytelling, I sometimes say the goal is to write a story no one else would write, that no one else could write. I talk about making a story more like itself, not like other stories. Is it possible to say that a person might become more like themselves, for us to strive to make ourselves more like ourselves? And as one might strive to live like no one else would, to think and say and do what is unique to you alone. Can we trust what's inside us and trust our fascination in what is beyond us and dwell in the bewilderment between those two? Will we help each other? I hope so. What will happen next? I really don't know. Let's try something and see what happens.
Pete Rock, awesome. Something I love about being at Reed are the amazing faculty who are here. Students, you have a treat in front of you. Thank you again, Pete. And thank you everyone for your participation. This concludes our Convocation program. I have some instructions. I ask first of all that you please remain in your seats. And once the music starts, we'll recess. And so after the recession is done, then you can depart the tent, which is going to be a kind of cluster situation. It'll be fine. But two important announcements before you leave. First, we have an all-class photo for the new Reedies. So please follow the direction of the owls. Those are the owls. Hey, owls. The orientation wayfinding leaders. Yay. And meet in front of Elliot, that's Elliot, for the class picture. Parents, this is not an opportunity for you to take photos as your student will be facing the building, just so you know. But there will be time for you to take photos between now and when you leave later today. Second, students, if you have a relative here with you today who is a Reed alum, you and that relative are invited to be in the Reed Generations photo. You can meet at the Elliott Circle after the all-class photo. So thank you again, everyone. Welcome, and happy to see you here. Thanks.